Great to see you again and welcome back, everyone. I'm Vladislav Novikov, and today I'm joined by Yuri Rashkin, host of YouTube channel Rashkin Rappers and a local elected official in the state of Wisconsin. Yuri, really glad to have you with us again.
Thank you for having me, and I'd like to greet all of our viewers and listeners and remind them to hit like and subscribe to War and Politics 24 and also to Rashkin Report in English. And if you speak Russian, then check out Rashkin Report as well.
Yeah, so let's start. Today, the White House said that Trump didn't urge strike on Moscow or St. Petersburg in his call with Zelensky, despite what the Financial Times reported. Were you surprised by that article too?
To some extent, yes. To some extent, no. Having conducted many conversations with Yuri Filshchinsky, who is one of the most well-known historians of KGB in the world, and a regular, sparring guest partner of mine, a friend of mine, is the importance of striking Moscow. It really is important to several people, and we clearly see that President Trump places a lot of importance on striking Moscow. Perhaps it's all about those beautiful buildings over there that he cares so much about because of his real estate developing background. I wonder if you could refinance Kremlin. But on the other hand, I think that there's also kind of a practicality to Donald Trump that we sometimes do not have enough appreciation for. I remember an interview with Stormy Daniels, who was a porno star that made it known that Donald Trump's body parts is shaped like a mushroom. Thanks to her, we know this now. Try to forget it. Interestingly enough, she said that when Donald Trump was speaking with her, he was not speaking about some nasty things. He was speaking about the business of pornography and, how the compensation levels and the things involved, that kind of a thing. Very pragmatic, business-like approach, which is ironic because of his 6 bankruptcies. But nonetheless, he's interested in practicalities and to a surprising extent, I guess, is what I'm saying. So in this instance, it's interesting that he asked a question that I think Putin would not like him to, maybe Putin would like him to know, like, hey, Donald, next time you talk to Vladimir Zelensky, those crazy people in Ukraine, ask him if he thinks he can strike Moscow, just to see if he might, because maybe we don't know something about Ukrainian capabilities, which of course is true because Operation Spiderweb showed that a drone can fly out of any a truck, basically, and cause substantial damage. So it's fair to ask in any way he can find out if Ukraine has some new tools and new tricks up its sleeve. But it's also interesting that even with these conversations, we see that Ukraine actually seems to have a lot of cards up its sleeve because United States is continuing to support Ukraine. And all of this, to me, is first of all Ukrainian victory because Donald Trump, in spite of everything he said, in spite of how he promised to his base that he's not going to be getting us involved in another, war, he's here to get us out of wars. When faced with reality, Donald Trump appears to understand the situation a little better. He just seems to ignore and dismiss efforts by anybody else but him. But when he himself runs into a problem, then immediately the problem gets legitimized. And he understands that Putin's, curiosity has got to be killing him. What would it take to take out Putin? After all, I think knowing vulnerabilities and lowering where you can put leverage on Putin is an important thing for American intelligence to know as well. So there's all sorts of reasons why this would be a good question to ask. Some of those could be reasons suspicious. Some of those reasons could be legitimate. I think if you're concerned about Epstein files, then that's, another conspiracy in the making there. But if you're looking at this from Ukraine's point of view, then I think it looks very encouraging. You want to hear those kinds of questions if you're Ukraine. Yes, that's a great question. And can we do it tomorrow? Yes, you bet. Can we do it for a little bit more explosions? Well, it's up to you. It depends on the American capabilities. Of course, we know that the president has kind of a foggy understanding due, again, to his real estate background of what is a Patriot system, what is involved when he says that he is willing to send 17 Patriot. Is he talking about launchers, systems? I don't even know all of this. I just know that reading articles that people are trying to figure out what is going on. People are trying to again figure out what could he have possibly meant. So he could have meant several different things, but in this instance, he's showing the right inclination. He's leaning in the right direction. What would it take? Is Ukraine capable of doing it? And I think it's important to acknowledge and to thank apparently the latest Ukrainian asset, which is Agent Melania Trumpuk, yeah, because it turns out that it is her, First Lady Melania, that first told Donald that in spite of the good conversation with Vladimir Putin that he thinks he had, turns out that Russia continues to attack the Ukrainian cities. And it was interesting that Trump mentioned it because it was kind of almost like throwing his wife under the bus. It wasn't my idea. I wasn't the one who discovered that Putin was violating, going against what we agreed on the phone. It was my wife. She says, he's still doing it. Did you know? Well, what could I do at that point? I just wonder at what point Melania is going to get with her, big mouth, is going to get herself deported or, lose citizenship because she came here as a genius and she's a valuable asset of reality, but that might not be something that is welcomed in this White House. So, again, I think that there's questions, there's information, and then there's reality.
Yeah, the Times reports that Melania Trump has become an unexpected ally of Zelensky inside the White House. So is Melania now Zelensky's best friend in Washington?
I think that's an interesting question in the sense that maybe she could be made like an ambassador or given her some kind of official title. I mean, Ukraine is looking for a new ambassador right now in D.C., so maybe First Lady Melania would agree to kind of moonlight. I mean, she doesn't seem to be too busy. No one sees her much, except in this story where all of a sudden she made an appearance. Frankly, I think there's been questions and articles about exactly where is Melania Trump. Maybe she's in Kyiv. I don't know, but doubtful. So I think that reality is something that continuously invades Donald Trump's world. Either it is through his wife saying, well, that's nice that you had a good conversation with Vova, but did you know he's now behind your back? It's interesting. Maybe she could also mention to him that her naked pictures were shown on Russian TV after Trump was elected because it doesn't seem like he's known. Or maybe this would be a point of pride for him because he'd be like, see, now so many people know what a beautiful wife I have. So it's, kind of uncontrollable consequences of speaking to Donald Trump. But the situation that he has now walked into by becoming the chief keeper of all the Epstein secrets and the chief protector of the Epstein conspiracy. I think that's a dose of reality that his followers might not be able to handle. I think Melania pointing out things that are very obvious, is an episode of to what extent Trump loves Putin, to what extent Trump is willing to ignore that Putin says, but apparently there's somebody who can pierce that. But that's one person. But when we look at the whole MAGA movement that is now so upset at Trump and thinks that he is part of the problem, how did they ignore this for years? How did they not know that their, precious leader has been spent 15 years being best friends with this person that they think they need to find the list of clients? I wonder who's going to be on there. Perhaps something to do with his best friend. And although there is no reason to, there's no evidence to connect Trump to Epstein at this point in any sort of criminal way, his base is really, bloodthirsty. And I think that's maybe one of the differences between Melania and and the Trump's base, because she is just seeing what she's seeing, and she's letting Trump know. She probably wanted to perhaps, poke him a little bit, like, hey, you think you got this so good with Vladimir? Well, behind your back. But at the same time, his base, when they see that they're being betrayed, they respond in a very different way, because they seem to be kind of a more bloodthirsty bunch. And so they need to eat somebody. And if Trump is not going to let them eat Democrats, because it turns out that the list is hidden and now Trump is hiding the list, well, then I think his crowd will be just as happy to eat him alive as well.
I just hope there is no photo of Zelensky sitting on Melania's nightstand. That would really be a problem. But
yes, or Zelensky sitting, or a picture of Zelensky sitting on Melania's lap. Either way, that would not be good. No. But artificial intelligence can create amazing things, to the point that now, if we found out some horrible thing about the president, that that he is known for, supposedly Kremlin has all, his base wouldn't even believe this. This is why all of this conversation about Putin has something on Donald that has to do with video, it's not enough. I think that artificial intelligence these days can create a picture of anything we can prompt it to ask, and if not one artificial intelligence engine, then another. But the pressure that Putin is right now putting on Trump is truly remarkable. So I think that Melania Trump is providing a bright spot for us in an overall just flaming trash bin that is this administration.
Yeah, okay. The New York Times says Trump is unlikely to actually impose 100% tariff on Russia and its trading partners, because that would cause massive damage to the EU's economy and spark a clash with China. So was this speech yesterday just a completely bluff?
It would seem to have been mostly bluff if you listen to Russian media, which is saying, according to, I think, USA Today, that they're not threatened by this theatrical ultimatum. So they are not threatened. I mean, they know Trump. And I think that one of the most interesting things to me about this Trump phenomenon is to what extent people who wish for him to be the solution to their problems are willing to close their eyes and willing to ignore things that are very obvious. And when I see Russian propaganda saying things that are obvious, and people in America who are, or anywhere, who are closing their eyes and going, well, 50 days, and then he's really going to get it. I kind of go with Russian propaganda at that point, because it seems like they have their head on more straight. And New York Times supports really the same takeaway, because when we see that Putin told, this is like, I'm getting a little confused about who was the witness to these conversations, Macron, Trump, whatever. But on July 3rd, Putin said that he needed 60 days. And then 10 days later, Trump gives him 50 days. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that there is a kind of a working together, whether they intend to work together, whether this is just information that's available from public sources, but 2 and 2 is going to be 4. So we see that Putin really has big plans for the summer, and he thinks that he can take over Ukraine or take over the areas that he would like to control or do something. He thinks that now that the wind is blowing in his sails, and Trump sees this. I think the interesting thing to me is that to what extent Trump is showing himself to be a weak leader, because not only is he continuously postponing difficult decisions and ignores his own deadlines, but he also gives everybody everything, almost. In a sense that he is actually pretty good about giving Ukraine weapons, at least in terms of words, he says, because of the trust that's been absolutely destroyed. And partially it was destroyed through the impeachment, the first impeachment that Trump had, that specifically had to do with military aid to Ukraine in exchange for finding blackmail on the Biden family. There is no trust to Trump, but at least the words are starting to sound sound much more agreeable to Ukrainian position. So in a way, he's giving Ukraine, at least verbally, something of what it wants. And at the same time, he gives Putin something of what he wants, which is the time that Putin said he will take, and he's not going to do anything. Trump is saying this, I'm not going to be able to do anything about it. He frames it as his decision when he is, faced with inevitability. Again, the same as what he saw with Israel attacking Iran. When Trump saw the inevitability of Israeli attack on Iran, he decided to consider joining in, and when it looked good, he did the same, he joined in. And so now he's going along with Putin's plan because he sees that he cannot influence it and he cannot change it. So he's going to give Putin the time that he said he's going to take. And he gave Ukraine weapons that pretty much he's getting pressure to, not just by Ukraine, but by also the fact that Putin embarrasses the crap out of Trump every time, ignoring him, and allies who continuously pressure Trump to, on one hand, remind him how glorious he is and how Vladimir Putin is not respecting him, and on the other hand, saying that how great he's going to look when he supports Ukraine. And on the third hand, because sometimes I guess you get three hands, is that Europe is willing to pay for the whole thing. So Trump can even tell to his base that it's okay because we're making money here. This is part of, I believe, of the MAGA philosophy, is that morals don't matter as long as we're making money, and morals don't matter as long as we're losing money. So if our prices are going up, then we need to get rid of this leader, regardless of whether it had to do with pandemic, whether it had to do with Russian invasion of Ukraine. It's all about the numbers. And so since Trump determines what MAGA is, that's what it is. He also determines that MAGA now must not look anymore in the direction of Epstein files. And it's hilarious because Fox News the other night just didn't ask any questions, just didn't bring it up at all. Amazing. So I think that Trump is making ultimatums and pronouncing things that are, obvious. I can go outside and see a sunny weather and be like, it's going to be sunny until it's not sunny anymore, and that is my desire. Makes America look weak. It doesn't make America look strong. It destroys American leadership. It's sad to see because so much of this vacuum that exactly like Secretary Blinken, former Secretary Blinken has said, that when America leaves, this vacuum space is filled up by interests that have nothing good for America, that are dangerous and harmful to American interests. That space, there's a Russian expression that says a holy place is never empty. When America leaves, Russia and China are filling up that space very quickly.
And today Lavrov said Russia has no idea what Trump meant by giving 50 days to sing a peace deal. Fair enough, it's a pretty strange. Can you help Lavrov solve it? What does Trump actually want here?
Trump wants to make money, and I don't understand how Mr. Lavrov doesn't understand such a simple concept. I don't know. That really, maybe it's because he works for a man and for whom money doesn't matter. And that's something that Donald Trump doesn't understand, because they have a very different competing system of values, even if they're not aware of it. Because Trump is interested in making money, and Putin and his junta are interested in domination and power, in land grabs and people controlled, population controlled, displaced, all of that kind of dynamics of empire building through genocide that has been the history of Russia. So Lavrov was just following in the same idea. And how can Trump, with his 50-day announcement, stop Russia from fulfilling its historic mission? He can't. He can, though, by helping Ukraine. That seems to be the one consistent answer to all of these problems with what do you do about this problem or other problem in the world, is you help Ukraine. And also, I think it's important to acknowledge that the threat, ultimatum, theatrical ultimatum, whatever you call it, made by Trump on whatever it was, Monday morning, because remember, we're waiting for Monday surprise. Oh, that we got that surprise, is that immediately Senate took the sanctions bill off of its basically schedule. They shelved it because now, well, they don't need to do anything. Remember that Lindsey Graham Blumenthal bill about how there's going to be all of those horrible things happening to countries that are touching Russia with the 10-foot clown pole? Well, now there's no need for all of that because President Trump took initiative. And that means that the weak leadership of Trump is actually stronger than leadership of Senate, where they are talking about things, they're making crazy propositions of 500% tariffs against India and China, which is really supported by nobody in the United States except people who, I don't know, are supporting Alcatraz in Florida, whatever, alligator Alcatraz, because it doesn't make any sense. But in this situation, we see sanctions that have been put on hold, and that's another effect of this ultimatum is that it stops dead cold the conversation about Graham Blumenthal bill.
So, Yuri, thank you so much. Really appreciate your time and insight. Great having you with us.
My pleasure.